Hey guys, welcome to the Silver Report Uncut. I wanted to talk today about precious metals, about stocks, about why the markets are priced ridiculous right now, and that there could be some real trouble heading in. A lot of the major corporations could face some trouble here soon. Now, if you're not good at saving money, you should buy silver. You should buy gold. This could be your ticket, man. This could be your pathway to a great, healthy savings. Right now, I see many Americans have consumed a lot of their savings. The savings rate just hit a new record low. They've consumed almost everything that they own. It's the inflation. It's taking everything away, despite all of the claims that the economy is doing the strongest it's ever done.
When we look at where we are economically, and we are stronger economically than we have been in history.
The people aren't. Sure, maybe the economy is doing well in terms of pricing, and that's because of inflation. But by the time this pricing goes through and wreaks havoc on the consumers, the economy is not going to be doing so good because a lot of these people are going to be desperate. Desperate, so they're going to be squeezing their belts a little bit, tightening up, and then it gets worse and worse and worse. The worse it gets, because then companies are going to need to do some cost-saving measures. We all know what that means. Cost-saving measures means you're fired. You're fired. And no, you're not going to get a call back. We'll put you on a layoff. We'll call you back as soon as we need you. They're not calling back. By the time they need you again, you're old news. You're obsolete. They're moving on to the next, much cheaper options. You know, those guys fresh out of school. So the markets, they're flashing a big warning sign right now. And I think a lot of people, they may not quite understand this yet, but the traders that are in the markets, and we mentioned this on numerous occasions, they were wearing diapers. They were wearing diapers the last time that the economy was allowed to go through a real hard time. The Federal Reserve has been the buyer of last resort, and everybody in the markets right now today, they've always believed and known that. You know, you get these things, the way you're raised, right? You got these natural habits that you can't shake that come from when you're a child, because that's the world you grew up in. That's the world you've known. For example, say you grow up in a home where your parents are very mean and they say mean things to you. Most likely, you say mean things also. And the reason for this is because that's just your vision of the world, your lens you have. You are pre-programmed that way because this is the way you react to stimuli the same way. You've trained your brain from a child that this is the safest and least painful way to react to a certain situation. And this gets imprinted on your brain just from this being your entire environment growing up. You know, it's not just negative things either. Not just negative things. Say your parents were firefighters, right? And most likely you're a firefighter. Your dad or your grandpa was in the army. Most likely you're in the army. That's just the way it works. They grow up and that's what they see. That's what, the family honors. And so that's why the child wants to go out and to strive and to be looked at as being successful in their parents' eyes, things like that, and they're no longer a child. This is the way it works. And so all of these traders are like kids that grew up spoiled, right? They get in trouble, they do something really, really, really stupid, and the parents go buy them some ice cream. I mean, this whole thing could have just been handled with just a simple smack on the butt, right? Let them feel their pain. Because when you do that, then they're not going to do it again. They're going to remember that. It's going to cause some connections in their brain to be formed where it shows that there is pain related with doing this type of action. But that's not what we did. We did the whole, unparenting parenting thing when it comes to these traders, and they've been raised thinking the Federal Reserve has this endless supply of money that's going to be coming into the markets because the market is the number one priority. Now the thing is, the Fed has changed. The Fed does not react to what the economy is doing. It does not react to what market participants want them to do. The Federal Reserve is a sovereign entity, one of very, very few sovereign powers in the world. Oh, you think America's a sovereign power? No, it's not. Our money is controlled by a private banking cartel. How are we sovereign? We can be bankrupted at will by like a group of 8 people. We can have our entire lives destroyed in a moment. They can destroy the entire world using the dollar. The dollar has a big symbol of an eye on it. Have you not seen it? Flip it over. Look at the back. It's there. It says New Order of the World on it. These people, they are no good and they control the world. They are a sovereign entity. They are not subject to anyone. They're not subject to the United States even. They're more powerful than the president. The leader of the Fed is more powerful than the president in the U.S. That's the way it is. You say, oh, well, no, they're not. No, they're not. Listen, if they don't like who's in that seat, they decide who's in that seat. Where do you think the money comes from? Where does the money come from that funds these people, that make them the richest people in the world at the World Economic Forum? Do you know most of that establishment is made up of bankers, even central bankers? Yeah, they all go. Of course they go. And the central banks, it's not just the Federal Reserve, that's not just one. They're all connected. They're all connected and they have been by the same secret power money. They are so powerful, they make the rules. And whenever they go and they confront the people at the Fed and they ask them situations like, hey, you guys printed a whole lot of dollars. Where did you send them? Could you give us a list of the corporations you sent them to? And they say, no, we will not answer any of your questions because we don't have to. And then that's it. Crickets. No one says anything because they don't have to. They said, we're not subject to you. We're not subject to your laws. They're running their own program, completely separate from anything we want. The Federal Reserve caused the Great Depression. The Federal Reserve caused the Great Depression. You said, why would they do that? I've never heard that before. They took all the gold of the United States. Gold was the money. Imagine that. The dollar was backed by gold. We were on a gold standard. In 1933, they went and the America needed a bailout. They caused a crisis, a currency crisis before. They caused a stock market crash right after. And the solution that they needed was to go in to solve the crisis, the currency crisis. And the only way the Federal Reserve and the big bankers could suggest that we could solve this crisis is to, of course, eliminate the gold standard. We need to go into a fiat money system or a partial fiat money system so that we can print what we need to print and borrow what we need to borrow. They cause a crisis. They get to gold. An executive order went out and it ordered that all citizens turn over their gold to the nearest Federal Reserve Bank. Not to the U.S. government, to the nearest Federal Reserve Bank. There were some loans made. Loans to our country. In exchange for those loans, signed by a few people, like the president at the time, all of the people's money, the entire nation's money was taken, and they were given paper in place of it. And you know what happened the very next year? The very next action? The price of gold went from $20 an ounce to $30 an ounce. They took everyone's gold in the entire nation, but they weren't done with the robbery yet. Then they revalued it immediately to $30 an ounce. Yes. That's criminal. It's criminal, but back then we didn't have the internet. We didn't have a lot of these ideas, these concepts that such evil people could exist in the world. That's how powerful the Fed is. They stole every single person in America's money. They stole your birthright. Do you know what that gold is worth today? $30 an ounce? My goodness, people. They stole your birthright. They took the crown off your head. That's what they did. That's the reason America is not this super prosperous entity anymore. Sure, the country might be the richest in the world. The people aren't. The standard of living is dropping rapidly. People got no money. Savings are gone. Everything's depleted. They're getting wiped out by inflation right now because everyone's holding these useless fiat paper currency notes, these debt instruments. They don't have any way to protect themselves because at this point, gold is just too expensive. Imagine if you'd have held on to the gold. Imagine if gold was your pocket change. Of course, pocket change meant something back then. You better believe you turned around and pick up a silver dime. But these metals, they've been used as money throughout all of history. Gold, silver, even copper. You know, they have this intrinsic value that is good all over the world. Whenever things get rough, and they do, it's always a good place to fall back. Now the Fed, they're doing the opposite of everything the market wants it to do. They want them to go out and to be accommodative. They're being hawkish. And the good news, bad news idea, this is something that we've been really, really plagued with the past 10 years, is that whenever, say, the jobs data comes out and it's good, like the JOLTS data just came out, then typically the market drops. But if the jobs data comes out and it shows that there was, say, 300,000 less jobs added than they were supposed to, then the markets will do good. They'll do good on this bad data because the belief is that the Federal Reserve is then going to become dovish. That's the way it works. They are completely and totally riding the Fed. Everything they think the Fed is going to do, that's the way they're going to invest. And the algorithms also react to this as well. So everything has changed. The whole game has changed. The Fed is not doing anything the market wants it to do, and the market is still doing the same thing. You see, the Fed changed. The market participants have not changed. Therefore, we have a dilemma. This dilemma is going to come to a head eventually, and it's going to come to a head very, very violently. The reason it's going to be so dramatic is because the market's already is unruly right now, sloshing this way and that way. We have all of this crazy things going on. And secondly, the Federal Reserve wants to cause a depression, a recession, whatever you want to call it. They want to reduce demand is the way they word it. Reducing demand means cutting the ability for people and corporations to borrow money easily or cheaply. It costs more money to borrow money. So the conundrum is this. The corporations, they're going to have some terrible earnings coming out. But what is the reason that investors should still stay with their company? Well, they give them a reason. There's this thing called stock buybacks. So these companies, because interest rates are so low, are enabled to borrow an infinite supply of what they call money. Then they use this and they buy their own stock. You say, how would a company profit if it's buying stock from itself? It owns a stock. How can it buy stock from itself and make money? That's not the way corporations make money. They do not make money from selling their gadgets. They make money from the investors. The whole thing is a stock market game. And the whole stock market game is a debt game. And the whole debt game is dependent on the 0% interest rates, which we've lived with forever. Well, not forever. Just in the time that these diaper traders have lived. Without the debt easily and cheaply accessible, the corporations will struggle to be able to do the same thing they have been doing, which is stock buybacks. And so they're investors, they're invested in their stock. Say the profits are terrible. Say the company's terrible. Say it's not profitable. In a real world, unassisted by things like the Federal Reserve's money printer, they would have failed long ago. We have a zombie corporation epidemic going on. Zombie corporation is a company that cannot sustain itself based on its own operating income, but rather requires debt to be able to continue. Almost all of these corporations are at that stage. They've exhausted everything they have. Nowhere else to turn. The only way they have to make money is not from the customers, the clients. It's from the Federal Reserve, printing money. They borrow the money. They give it to the investors. The investors make money. They make money, of course, because they're increasing the value of the stock. They own the stock, and so they're doing this to incentivize the investors to not only remain invested in their stock, but also to put more money in because these dividends are so high. We're going to be handing out money here, folks. You better get over here and get over here quick. And they make announcements ahead of time. They do this to try to create an excitement, and hopefully people move money there in anticipation of utilizing the increase to their advantage. So all of this is a lot of trouble coming down with the fact that the ability to borrow money has just increased drastically, the price. That price is going to ripple through the system. Kind of like inflation, right? You know prices are going to rise because certain things like the producer prices rise to historic highs. See, oh, inflation's going away. Guys, the producer prices just surged by 13%. That's the way it was a few months ago. So because the cost of borrowing money is increasing so much, companies are going to be able to afford less. They're going to be able to afford less, and some of them are not going to be able to afford it at all. We're going to see a wave of these zombie corporations failing very easily, and it's because they simply do not even have a successful business anymore. Everything has been the Federal Reserve. They've been supporting and sustaining the entire market through these programs. And whether intentional or not, that's the way it is. And when the money gets cut off and the easy flow is stopped, that's when we meet the tension. All those things are the perfect recipe for disaster, and they're already here. The easiest way to protect yourself, of course, would be gold and silver and other kinds of defensive assets. It's really unpredictable, though. When we hit this kind of stage, it's unpredictable what could happen. The world hates the dollar. The Federal Reserve needs to print the dollars. They need the 0% interest rates to get the corporations to use the dollars. All of this is really not functioning right now. It's not functioning, and it could get a lot worse. The reason I think that metals are such a great idea is because some people, they do not have the patience to save money. They have no savings. If you're out there and you have no savings, begin to buy one silver eagle every week. And it's not that much money. It's $20-something. Oh, did you notice those premiums on the silver are like a record high? The premium spot versus the physical price. Have you been on these bullion dealers' websites recently? The price is insane right now. And there's good reason for it, because the supply is nowhere near where the price is set, and it's clearly a sign of manipulation. The value is much, much higher than what they're placing it at. They just can't have it psychologically that high, because they know what will happen is that people will continue to buy into silver and gold, and they're going to lose a lot of control with the dollar. And that's already happening. Silver and gold have been money for literally almost all of time. And out of 92 naturally occurring elements, silver is actually the best conductor of heat and electricity. They're trying to convert the entire world over to green energy. They're going to need a lot of silver that they do not have. There's a major deficit. That's why the prices of physical are so high above the price of the imaginary silver or imaginary gold. It's paper gold. You'll never see it. You'll never touch it. You'll never taste it. You'll never know it exists besides the fact that you paid money for it, if you remember. But they say, well, things are tough over there. Why don't you just get rid of it all? Why'd you do that? Why was it such a dumb idea to buy it? It's never a bad idea. It's just a medium of exchange. Another form of money, and you're not buying anything whenever you buy silver. You're exchanging the currency. You're tapping out. You say, I don't want anything more to do with this evil stuff that we're eating and doing. And they go and buy new.